Greetings, my fellow renegades. I'll start by saying that I am annoyed. Why? Because I've been scammed. By whom, you ask? Well, various HEPA air purifier companies through the years. How are most HEPA air purifiers a scam? Well, the answer to that will be revealed as you watch. First, I'll tell you a story about why I started getting skeptical about the efficacy of most HEPA air purifiers in the first place. One day, an indoor environmental professional, or IEP, came to my house to do a radon test. In my house, there were a couple DIY air purifiers I had built, which were inspired by the Corsi-Rosenthal box, or CR box, design by Jim Rosenthal and Richard Corsi. CR boxes are typically built from 4 MERV-13 HVAC filters attached to a box fan that sucks air through the filters. So anyway, the IEP saw one of my CR boxes and he said, "Those are pretty good at capturing larger particles, but they're pretty bad at capturing tiny particles. HEPA air purifiers are way better at capturing tiny particles. You should use a HEPA." Let me quickly explain about particle sizes. So there are basically a few categories of them. There's PM10, which are 10 microns or fewer in diameter. So this category includes larger particles like dust, pollen, etc., and everything smaller. Another category is PM2.5 or fine particulate, which are 2.5 microns or fewer. So this category includes some combustion particles, metals, etc., and everything smaller. PM2.5 is considered dangerous for us health-wise because it can get into our bloodstreams and accumulate in organs, which can cause illness. There is extensive evidence about the health impacts of particulate matter. Let's talk about one of the many studies. This is epidemiology data from the Harvard 6 Cities study. They measured fine particle concentration in a bunch of different cities and relative mortality rate. And as you can see, as fine particle concentration goes up, relative mortality rate goes up as well. And in another study published in The Lancet, you can see that poor indoor air quality and ambient particulate matter are among the leading causes of death. This is 2.7 million deaths caused from poor indoor air quality. Here's another study about the causes of global ill health. And you can see that in the top 10 are ambient particulate matter and household air pollution for men and women. And we need to note that exposures to air pollution occur predominantly indoors because we spend 90% of our time indoors. So it's for this reason that my IEP said to get a HEPA air purifier. So I went on Google, and I think I Googled something like HEPA versus MERV and was brought to this EPA page. This chart lists the MERV rating of HVAC filters and their single pass filtration efficiency at different bins of particle sizes in microns. Single pass filtration efficiency is basically the percentage of particles passing through the filter one time that get captured by it and therefore removed from the air, aka capture efficiency. Let's go to MERV-13, which is the rating of the HVAC filters in my DIY unit. 90% of particles between 3 and 10 microns are captured. 90% is pretty good. 85% of particles between 1 and 3 microns, that's a bit worse. And only 50% of particles between 0.3 and 1 microns. That doesn't sound great at all. So a lot of PM2.5 doesn't get captured by MERV-13. If we scroll down, we actually see a HEPA rating as well. 99.97% of particles in the 0.3 micron range are captured, and particles that are larger or smaller than 0.3 microns are captured with a greater than 99.97 efficiency. That sounds way better than the MERV-13 filters I was using, and you might be able to see where this is going, right? So then, of course, I went searching for a HEPA air purifier to buy. And I ended up buying 3 units from a brand that was recommended by a few mold inspectors that I follow and I trust. I won't say which brand, but it promised incredible efficiency, better than standard HEPA. So I was super excited when my 3 shiny new HEPA units arrived in the mail. I immediately turned them on and I shut off my 2 DIY air purifiers. When I first ran my new machines, the first thing I noticed was that not much air was actually blowing from them. So I turned them on high speed, which made them really noisy, and a little more air was coming from them, but it still wasn't a lot. So I figured, hey, their filtration is so efficient that maybe they can get away with filtering a lower volume of air, right? Just logic. So I moved on with my life. And after a couple days, my nose started to itch a bit more. And after a few more days, my allergies had gotten pretty bad and I was sneezing a lot. My soft palate would actually itch in the middle of the night and wake me up. I was pretty environmentally sensitive as I had mold illness from which I'm actually still recovering. But anyway, it took me a bit to think that maybe it's the new air purifiers. At first, I had like a mental block preventing me from questioning them because I thought, well, it couldn't be them. They're supposed to be incredible. But then I came to my senses and I turned them off and replaced them with my DIY units from before. Within the day, my allergy symptoms started lessening, and over the next week, they got progressively better and better. And so at this point, I'm starting to notice a new symptom. A subtle feeling of anger smoldering in my chest. Did I get duped by HEPA air purifier marketing? So what do I do when I'm angry? You guys might be able to guess. I research. And honestly, whenever I'm feeling any emotion, I research. You know, it's interesting. Most of my emotions have curiosity tied to them in some way. And so anyway, my research question was, how can HEPA air purifiers capture virtually all particles that pass through them, but still leave the air dirty? Is there a better way to measure their performance? Turns out there is. Introducing Clean Air Delivery Rate, or CADR. Welcome to the Healthy Home Guide. This is a place where I share practical, budget-friendly tips for creating a safe and healthy home, whether the word home refers to your house or your body. Please go ahead and like this video and subscribe and share it with someone who you think needs an air purifier that works. Back to the video. Clean Air Delivery Rate, or CADR, is basically how quickly clean air is supplied to a space. It can also be thought of as how quickly a pollutant is removed from a space. You'll see it as liters per second, cubic feet per minute, etc. So CADR equals removal rate. But why does removal rate matter? Well, because there's also a rate at which pollutants, in this case particulate, are being generated in a space. So particulate is being continuously introduced into your home's air from various sources, including the outdoors, cooking, mold, our bodies shedding skin cells, us moving around the house and stirring it up, and more. In order to significantly lower the concentration of particulate in your air, the removal rate, or CADR, must be high enough to counteract the generation rate. Let me put it practically. When your air purifier has a high enough CADR for the space it's in, there is less of a chance that particulate concentration will build to an unhealthy level. If it does, it won't stay there as long. Your duration of exposure will be shorter. In determining the performance of an air purifier from an indoor air quality perspective, CADR is the only measurement that matters because it's a direct reflection of how clean the air will be. Let's go back to my initial question. How can a HEPA air purifier capture virtually all particles but still leave the air dirty? To answer that, I'll tell you this. Extensive research shows that DIY air purifiers, CR boxes basically, using MERV-13 filters tend to achieve much higher CADRs than HEPA air purifiers. To help us understand why, we'll talk to Wayne Westerman and Rob Wissmann, co-founders of Clean Air Kits, a company that makes and tests air purifiers that actually work at an affordable price point. Wayne and Rob will introduce the concept of how MERV-13 filters can outperform HEPA in in-room particulate purifiers.
The most important metric is how quickly are you removing the particles from the room. So if you look at a MERV-13 filter for viruses, yeah, it's capturing about 75% of the particles per pass. But you got, these two big filtrates here, you got an enormous amount of area. If you're building a Corsi-Rosenthal box, it's like 4 filters. It's an enormous area for that to happen. So the total number of particles you're capturing is going to be really big. So here, this big blue arrow, that's your equivalent of how much air is coming through perfectly clean. Now, there's 25% leaking through that's still dirty, and everything disperses and mixes very quickly. So it doesn't really matter if it's all perfectly pure coming out. What matters is how many particles did I capture in that pass. So if we go down to the HEPAs and they'll say, oh, well, we're HEPA 13, it's 99.97%. That means that the air coming out of the HEPA is perfectly pure at the outlet. It's got a very tiny amount of contamination still left. But it's a much, much smaller stream in most cases. For the same cost or for the same amount of noise, that cleaned air stream is tiny, and it's got to mix back into the room too. So it's not capturing nearly as many particles because the incoming stream is tiny, and it doesn't really matter that you perfectly purified a thimble full of air and throw it back into the room. It's still got to mix back in. Overall, MERV-13 gives a much, much more efficient operating point from the standpoint of fan RPMs and noise and energy to capture the same number of particles as these restrictive HEPA that say, 99.97 single pass efficiency. And the only reason the whole industry ended up at, HEPA H13 is because they glommed on to marketing this 99.97% number, which isn't even the right metric for a room purifier.
Amen. So with HEPA, to get a high CADR, what do you actually need to do?
There's two directions they can go, right? They can put a big honking fan on it that's really powerful and really loud, or they can make a big honking filter, which just takes up a lot of room in your room, and it's going to be really expensive to buy replacements for it, right? That's how they can make it either quieter, or powerful, or both, right? And there's some serious trade-offs there in terms of user experience and cost.
Well said. Really well said. Isn't it true also that many HEPA air purifier brands don't even report CADR in the first place?
So when you look at websites for HEPA air cleaners, yes, some of them don't advertise the CADR, right? And there's probably a reason for that. And it's not that they don't know the CADR for that device. So that's just something that consumers should be aware of, right?
I say CADR, Win and Rob say CADR. We both mean clean air delivery rate. And there are a few HEPA brands that do report CADR. Among those, can we trust that number, or is that number a little misleading?
A lot of the time, there's a single number reported. And when that's the case, the number is going to most likely be from the highest and the loudest setting that's available on that device, right? Because that's going to give them the biggest air cleaning. That's when the fan's moving the fastest.
So what do I do to counteract the influence of deceptive marketing? I go up to my proverbial rooftop and I shout about the research. In this study by Porto et al., they measured the performance of this DIY Corsi-Rosenthal box, which was basically just a box fan and MERV-13 filters, in both home office and classroom settings for particles greater than 0.5 microns. Figure 2A shows that at the lowest speed, its clean air delivery rate is around 600 CFM, which is really high. That's much higher than the two commercially available HEPA air purifiers that they tested on maximum speed. Not only that, but the CR box saved money relative to the HEPAs. The low-speed CR box was around 1/10 the initial cost of the HEPA per unit of air cleaned. Figure 3B shows CADR at different particle sizes. The HEPAs are in the blues and the CR boxes are in the warm colors. As you can see, the CADR barely varies across particle size, and the small variation that does exist below 0.7 microns is consistent between HEPA and the CR box. So the MERV-13 DIY air purifiers were still effective across a range of particle sizes. I'll delve into that later when I talk about ultrafine particles. Moving on, noise levels of both the CR box and the HEPA were high. That's because the CR box used a box fan. There are quieter fans that these researchers could have used. More on that later. Our next study is by Sri Krishna et al., who tested a bunch of DIY air purifier configurations against best-in-class HEPA air purifiers. I'm going to focus specifically on their CR box configuration here versus the best HEPA here. This HEPA on a high speed had a significantly lower CADR than the MERV-13 CR box at its lowest speed. I'm sensing a trend. This was for particles at 0.3 microns, which is the most penetrating particle size, or MPPS, meaning the size of particle that filters are the worst at capturing. So this size of particle is good to use in testing because it tells us the worst case scenario. Moving on, the upfront cost of the components of the CR box was around 5 times cheaper than the HEPA. Like this video if you're starting to see why I'm angry. Here's a figure that shows efficiency in the red line. Yes, even though the capture efficiency of the HEPA was higher than the CR box still cleaned the air better. Here's a good quote about that concept by Joey Fox, an HVAC engineer who writes amazing IAQ articles, some of which I linked in the description for you. A CR box uses MERV-13 filters, which can only remove 60 to 80% of those particles, but the fan on the CR box is much bigger and can clean more air. All you care about in the end is the total rate at which the air is cleaned. So what the CR box lacks in efficiency, It makes up for an airflow. Before I move on, I want to point out something interesting. The HEPA unit's efficiency actually measured lower than 99.97%, which is the expected efficiency of HEPA. More on that later. This third study by Holder et al. Demonstrates that DIY air purifiers can even be effective at capturing wildfire smoke, which mostly measures 0.3 microns. This MERV-13 CR box vastly outperformed a commercial HEPA air purifier in terms of CADR, and also initial cost per CADR and CADR per watt. Interestingly, the researchers found that filters that are saturated with wildfire smoke perform much worse in terms of CADR. So remember to change your filters frequently during wildfire season. Here's an amazing review that compiles a lot of the available data about DIY air purifiers. It's laid out really conveniently so you can see lots of metrics in one place for the studies I just went over and others. Basically, DIY air purifiers consistently beat commercial HEPAs in terms of CADR, cost per CADR, and CADR per watt. So with their great airflow, these DIY CR boxes clean the air faster, cost less upfront, and use less electricity, even though they use MERV-13 filters, which are less efficient than HEPA. So in the studies I just went over, we saw that MERV-13 filters can capture fine particles as small as 0.3 microns. But what about ultrafine particles, which are 0.1 microns or fewer? So let me explain. One argument that people who are brainwashed into touting HEPA air purifiers repeatedly make is that HEPA can capture ultra-fine particles, while other filters can't. It is true that HEPA filters can capture ultrafine particles. In fact, HEPA filters are better at capturing ultrafine particles than they are at capturing slightly larger particles. This goes back to the concept I mentioned earlier of most penetrating particle size, or MPPS, which is around 0.3 microns. To recap, particles around 0.3 microns are the most difficult for HEPA to capture, and HEPA is better at capturing particles both larger and smaller than 0.3. But see, the thing they don't tell you is that MERV filters exhibit the same phenomenon. Figure 5 from Azimi et al. Shows the size-resolved removal efficiencies for MERV-rated HVAC filters, so how efficient they are at different particle sizes. On the x-axis, you can see the particle size from 0.001 microns, which is well into the ultrafine range, to 10 microns, or a larger particle. On the y-axis is removal efficiency, so the higher the better. On top, you can see HEPA, which is of course the most efficient of all filters, near 100% no matter the particle size, but being the most efficient at smaller and larger sizes than MPPS, as we went over. But see, the same phenomenon can be observed for all of the MERV-rated HVAC filters. MERV-13 isn't in this figure, but we have MERV-12 and 14, so we can extrapolate. Especially MERV-16 and MERV-14, and even MERV-12 all approach near 100% efficiency for ultrafine particles. So HEPA is not needed for ultrafine particle capture. HVAC filters can do it too. And see here that Stevens et al. Demonstrates a similar phenomenon in figure 3 for the MERV-13 filter. See, but these studies measured single pass efficiency for a standalone HVAC filter. What about in the context of a DIY air purifier with 4 filters? Myers et al. Demonstrates that indeed CADR of a CR box, in the brown, is lowest at the MPPS of around 0.3 microns and increases slightly as we get more ultrafine down to 0.01 microns. I'd like to point out that these researchers didn't measure particles as ultrafine as the previous study, and if they had, I'd expect to see CADR increasing more on the left end as the particles get more ultrafine. Even so, the data shows that CR boxes can absolutely capture ultrafine particulate, and just like HEPA, they're even better at it. Remember earlier when I mentioned that the HEPA air purifier from Sri Krishna et al. Had an efficiency lower than 99.97%, its expected efficiency? This may be because on turbo speed, the speed used to market their CADRs, most HEPA units are running at a velocity much higher than the velocity used to test their filtration efficiency. In this context, the faster air flows through a filter, aka face velocity, the more particles can penetrate through it without getting captured. We don't want penetration. And indeed, this study by Chang et al. Shows that penetration decreases as air velocity drops, especially for ultrafine particles, interestingly. So the fact that low velocity lets fewer particles penetrate is good for CR boxes because generally velocity will be much lower in a CR box than a HEPA unit. This is because CR boxes tend to have a much larger filter surface area. So they have 4 filters. That's a lot of area. Also, I especially love this study because it used 3M Filtrete filters, the best HVAC filters right now, according to numerous testers, one being the 3D Handyman. So it's pretty clear that CR boxes are amazing. But can they protect us from viruses? This is a presentation by Dr. Catherine Ratliff from the EPA in which a non-pathogenic virus was aerosolized in simulated saliva in a large 3,000 cubic foot chamber. The results. The MERV-13 CR box drew down 97% of bioaerosols in 30 minutes and 99.4 in 60, far better than control, which was the CR box turned off. CADR was 234 CFM. So yeah, I mean, DIY air purifiers can protect us from viruses too. So now we know that CR boxes leave HEPA air purifiers in the dust in terms of initial cost, energy efficiency, and of course, clean air delivery rate, no matter the particle size. However, both HEPA units and CR boxes can be a bit noisy. Is there a way we can retain the high CADR of CR boxes, but use a quieter fan than a box fan? Remember Wayne and Rob from earlier? They've figured out a way at their company Clean Air Kits. They make a line of air purifiers that are quieter and more energy efficient, even than standard CR boxes, while still retaining some of the design features that make CR boxes so effective in terms of CADR. The key, PC fans. Can you guys talk about how PC fan CR boxes can save hundreds in electricity and filter replacement costs compared to large HEPAs with equal clean air delivery?
PC fans have been, optimized by a very competitive industry for quietness and energy efficiency. And we found that the 120 millimeter size seems to be the most efficient size. And then we went through all the brands to see which was the quietest and most cost effective. And on this chart, watts per occupant on this axis and dollars per occupant, we're just kind of off the charts, way more efficient. We're under $20 per occupant. And this is assuming continuous operation throughout the year and a filter change every year. And sampling of other HEPAs is costing twice as much and often using several times as much power to do the same thing.
Amazing. Wow. So can you talk about your process for selecting the specific PC fans that you ultimately went with?
We took even from, the dozen leading models of static pressure PC fans, we evaluated all those in terms of noise and the prices they were available at us. And we settled on the Cooler Master brand for most of our products. They have these Sickle Flow and Mobius fans, and they are just a couple decibels quieter than their competition at these operating points. And they're really well built too. They're robust and they are UL registered. So that allowed us to pursue UL 507 certification. And that's going to, help us get into classrooms and commercial settings.
All right. So Wayne, how do Clean Air Kits compare with CR boxes?
Our products are the blue stars on this chart. This is a sample CR box. They can be anywhere from 250 to 400 by some measurements on their low and medium speed. And then if you turn the box fan up to high, it would be up here 600 or 800 CFM. Really, really good, except, on high, they're really, really loud too. This chart was originally put together early in the pandemic, like 2021, and it's got all these HEPA brands. You want to be up in this corner as far as you can on the chart because you're getting high CADR and low cost. And you can see we're kind of leading the march toward that corner compared to all the HEPAs. And the remarkable thing is we're doing it while being quieter than all of them. And if you took all these HEPAs in red and green and you turned down their speed till they were in the blue range of 40, 50 decibel speed, then you'd be measuring them, they're going to, again, drop in half in their CADR performance. They're all going to be clustered way down here. In short, we can match the CADR of a CR box on lower medium with our range of models with 5 to 9 or 10 PC fans. We're going to use like 1/5 the energy of the CR box, and we're going to be at least 10 decibels quieter.
One convenient feature about clean air kits that I wanted to mention is that when the power goes off and then goes back on again, clean air kits are so simple that they'll automatically turn back on when the power goes back on. Next, Wayne from Clean Air Kits is going to talk about a deeply informative experiment where he compared the luggable XXL from Clean Air Kits to a HEPA unit for viral-sized particles. This was a well-rated, well-regarded, popular commercial HEPA unit. Both the luggable XXL and the HEPA unit have CADRs of 400 CFM, so they have the same CADR. So, how do other aspects of their performances compare? Wayne?
They're both doing what they said. They're doing 400 CADR. They're bringing the particles down. Overall, it's the same. But the PC fans are doing this with about 46, 47 decibels of noise through their MERV-13 and using 15 watts of electricity. The HEPAs on turbo, 64 decibels, almost 20 decibels louder. On turbo, it sounds like a little mini jet engine next to you. And 49 watts, 3 times as much power to do this. So this is a practical example. Our rule of thumb is if you're buying a HEPA and it has a CADR rating, chances are in practice, you're going to get half the CADR out of that by the time you turn it down to medium where it's below 50 decibels and tolerable. So we show that in this chart. We turn that HEPA down to half, and its rate of drawdown fell in half. Instead of getting 4.5 ACH, it was now getting only 2.4 ACH. So to get it back up to 400 CAD or CFM, you have to buy 2 of them and run them on medium.
I'm going to point out an unexpected finding here. The luggable's drawdown was much cleaner than the HEPA units, indicating that the luggable, with its PC fans facing different directions, more effectively dispersed clean air throughout the space. So that leads us to the ultimate question. Which air purifier should you get? Well, you have 3 options. Option 1, you can buy from Clean Air Kits. I have 3 of their Brisk boxes and I absolutely love them. Clean Air Kits are also reasonably priced, so you can buy more of them if you need to cover more space in your house. Clean Air Kits even has prettier ones for the aesthetically sensitive among us. Option 2, you could check out cleanairstars.com, which is a website that compiles data for tons of air purifiers and has a helpful selection tool. There are some HEPA units on there that are actually decent, like the Smart Air Blast, but they're more expensive overall. Option 3, you could build one yourself. What option would I recommend? I'd recommend buying from Clean Air Kits because the PC fan designs they use are the best balance of CADR, noise, cost, and energy efficiency that I know of. Given all the data I've shared, it's clear that a CR box type design with MERV-13 HVAC filters is your best bet, not HEPA, whether you buy from Clean Air Kits or build it yourself. If you are leaning towards building one yourself, you might be wondering which design to build. Some of you might even be curious about my own DIY air purifier design, this one right here, the one that brought many of you to my channel. I still think this is a great option. It's relatively easy to build, quiet relative to designs that use box fans, and powerful. To this day, I still have one in my bedroom and this one in my office, and they keep particle counts super low. The AC Infinity fan in my design also generates even more CFM than a standard box fan, according to the specs as well as my own testing. Full disclosure though, I have not tested my design CADR because it's a fairly involved process. However, my design is pretty similar to standard CR boxes, which tend to have CADRs of around 400 CFM or above, so I imagine my design has a similar CADR. That is just a theory, but it is supported by the following findings from Holder et al. The CADR was minimally impacted by different approaches to attach the filters to the fan, showing that DIY air cleaner performance may be largely independent from how the user constructs them. Still, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I do plan on testing its CADR at some point, and until I do, take my words with a grain of salt, or should I say, a grain of particulate. Before you do get an air purifier, please keep this in mind. Make sure its CADR is high enough for the particular space you'll be putting it in. There are a few ways to do this, but the easiest and quickest is AHAM's 2/3 rule, which states that the CADR of your air cleaner should be equal to at least 2/3 of the room's area. For example, a room with the dimensions of 12 feet by 15 feet has an area of 180 square feet, 12 times 15. So use an air cleaner with a CADR of at least 120 CFM, and that's from 180 times 0.66 or 2/3. For wildfire smoke though, CADR should be equal to the size of the room in square feet, so 180 CFM in this case. Another great sizing method is ASHRAE 241 if you're concerned about infectious aerosols. In the interest of conciseness, I won't go over that in this video. Now I'm going to give my opinion on sizing for homes. I actually prefer CADR to be closer to twice the room area because I'm environmentally sensitive. You can use multiple air purifiers to achieve this. For example, in my open kitchen / living room space, which is around 500 square feet, I have 3 brisk boxes from Clean Air Kits, each of which has a CADR of 300 CFM. So 300 times 3 equals a total of 900 CFM. So 900 is almost twice the room area of 500. That's what you want to shoot for. Again, this is just my opinion of what works for me as someone with bad environmental sensitivities. This method also applies to those living in homes with really bad air quality, like if you have a bad mold problem and you're not able to leave. So yeah, with CADR twice the room area, your air is going to be a lot cleaner. Now Wayne from Clean Air Kits is going to talk about his pretty innovative air cleaner layout strategy that's especially useful for those who are concerned with viral transmission in their homes. So you guys have an air cleaner called the EXHALARON that does something especially unique that I don't think most people are even aware that air purifiers can do. Can you talk about it?
What it's going to do is basically create so much suction that the people surrounding it, 3/4 of their breath is just going to go through and instantly get filtered before it even spreads into the room. So this is near field source control of about the level of cloth or surgical mask that most people wore in the pandemic. Not as safe as if they were wearing their N95, but it's still a 2 or 4x jump in safety instantly for everybody in the room, and it's so quiet it doesn't bother anybody. I can work with this thing. I can have a meeting with this thing right next to me, and I can put it on my nightstand. There's no other HEPA on the market that's quiet enough to do this. It's another 3 or 4x margin of safety over just the overall room air cleaning. In the bigger rooms, like your dining room, your open areas will have either like a luggable XL or a tower of power or an end table that has 7 to 10 sickle flow fans that are covering these large spaces of 500 to 1,000 square feet. And then putting accelerons on the nightstands in each bedroom. It's big enough to do about 5 ACH in the room just as a room purifier, especially if you put it on both nightstands. It's going to pull your breath as you're sleeping, immediately going to pull it in and clean it and pull it away from your partner who's sleeping next to you. We did a cool video of this with a fog machine when we have guests over for dinner, and sometimes even for breakfast for ourselves, we'll put an Acceleron on the dinner table. The sharing of breath across the table when you have one of these present is greatly reduced.
Now I'm going to preemptively address a couple questions that I suspect you guys are going to ask me. Question 1. Are there situations where the high single pass efficiency of HEPA filters is actually useful? Absolutely. Like if one space is dustier and another space is cleaner, HEPAs help keep the dust out of the cleaner space. Don't worry, I'm going to give you an example. In HEPA vacuums, HEPA filters are crucial to keep particles from the dusty floor from being dispersed into the air. Question 2. Many commercial air purifiers have activated carbon filters, while CR Box / PC Fan air purifiers generally don't. Is this a big loss? And is activated carbon as useful as people think in this context? Or Joey Fox has an amazing answer for this in his article called How to Pick an Air Cleaner, linked in the description. Carbon filters can remove VOCs, ozone, and odors. They can potentially be effective if sized properly. However, air cleaners rarely provide equivalent outdoor air delivery rates for the carbon filters. They also become saturated over time and would then become ineffective. Unfortunately, many portable air cleaners do not provide clear information on the longevity and effectiveness of their carbon filters. While carbon filters are a harmless feature, they may not necessarily deliver the desired results. Additionally, carbon filters do not remove particulate matter, which includes airborne diseases. Therefore, they have no impact on addressing health concerns related to viruses or other particulate matter. In general, when dealing with VOCs and odors, the most effective approach is through ventilation by supplying fresh outdoor air to the space. Considering the uncertainty surrounding the effectiveness of carbon filters, they are not something that should generally be pursued, but should not deter you from purchasing the air purifier altogether. In that same article, Joey also talks about why prefilters and other features may not be necessary. Hint, they're trying to take your money. So yeah, when it comes to air purifiers, there's a lot of really bad advice out there. I've gotten bad advice even from people that I trust. Let's never again let anyone manipulate us into getting locked into a proprietary system that profits from us buying needlessly expensive filters and replacing them too soon, and that sacrifices our health for their bottom line. This is why I call you guys my fellow renegades on this channel, because let's be renegades. Let's divorce ourselves from these broken systems that manipulate us and profit off of us. The reason why I'm so angry is because us having the right air purifiers is literally a matter of life and death, as these studies and many others show. In the figure on the left, the higher the particulate concentration in a given city, the higher its mortality rate. On the right, ambient PM and poor indoor air quality are now among the most common causes of death, right up there with high blood pressure, poor diet, smoking, and alcohol use. Through the years, I've bought numerous brands of overpriced and ineffective HEPA units. Now that I know about clean air delivery rate, my days of being scammed are over. It's my hope that this video gets shared enough to reach some IEPs and helps them share information that benefits their customers. I know you learned something today, so please like this video if you did, and subscribe for more content like this. Please comment as well. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your questions. I want to hear from you. If you're able to donate to my channel, please do so at the link in the description. And finally, my fellow renegades, I salute you.